Hello and welcome to Working Lunch, the Slow Chambers weekly series where we talk with our community leaders to get to know the person behind the position and all the interesting things they are working on. I'm Jim D'Antona, President and CEO of the San Luis Chamber, and today you'll get to be a part of my conversation with Tolosa Winery's President and CEO, June McIvor. Since 2015, June has overseen the comprehensive refresh and elevation of Tolosa, including an across-the-board overhaul of Tolosa's approach to direct-to-consumer sales. She joined the Tolosa team after a successful law career, which included being a partner at Sinsheimer, Yunke, McIvor and Stroh, now known as McCormick and Barstow, and was previously associated with the global law firm of Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher. She's also done some very interesting work with professional soccer, which we'll dig into a little further. Committed to raising the profile of the San Luis Obispo Coast wine country in general and the Edna Valley AVA in particular, June recently concluded a 3-year term as president of the San Luis Obispo Coast Wine Collective. Besides all the terrific professional work June has done, she has very generously donated her time to the San Luis Obispo community, lending her talents to many nonprofits, including as board president of the San Luis Obispo Symphony, regional commissioner of the AYSO, and board chair of Leadership SLO, and as board member of the French Medical Hospital Center Foundation. I'm so looking forward to learning more about how soccer has permeated June's major life moves, looking at how the business of wine has matured and changed, especially here in the Edna Valley, and talking about the long-term impacts of climate change on the industry. June, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks so much for having me. I've been so impressed with how you and the Chamber have managed to keep our community so connected, even virtually through these times. So thanks for doing all you do.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate it. It's been fun, especially in these parts, doing this. As we sit down to lunch, first and foremost, where are you zooming in from today?
I'm here in my office, just where I spend most of my lunch hours. So I don't have a window, but I pretend I do. I pretend I'm looking out on the vineyard. I would have loved to have shared more of our beautiful spaces with you, but they're just not Zoom friendly. So here I am.
It's always the problem of backlighting and turning into an FBI informant, blacked out silhouette.
Exactly.
Well, one of the great parts, as I was just saying, about doing these interviews over the last year has been the really interesting things I get to know about people that aren't part of our everyday discussions. In this case, it looks as though soccer has been a thread through both your personal and professional life. How did you get started in the sport, and was it in high school or even before that?
It was before that. So I started playing when I was 10 years old, which by today's standard, right, is ancient. If you're not starting U6, you've lost your chance. But I started when I was 10. No one knows why, but no one else in my family played. But I just loved the sport. And I played in high school. A little bit of had to work to do that. When I got to our high school, actually right before it, I'd been playing intramurals in junior high, and I said to my PE teacher, I can't wait to play soccer at the high school. And she looked at me and she said, there's no girls soccer team at the high school, but I think I know how you can get one. So Title IX was new, and I spent 3 years, petitions, school board meetings, you name it, advocating for a girls soccer team at my high school. So my senior year, I was co-captain of the first ever girls varsity soccer team at my high school. And then I went on to play in college, D3 at Vassar College, played my whole life, and toying with retirement this season, but we'll see. I'm still putting my team together for the fall, so we'll see.
That's so awesome. And even more impressive, as one of the questions I would usually start in, how did you get into your law career? But this was so interesting because actually it seems like your law career started through your soccer career.
Kind of, I definitely that planted that seed about, what the legal process can do for you, and definitely helped pique my interest in law.
Well, we looked at, as you obviously, as you were going through college, you played college soccer, which is amazing. Looking at kind of, though it wasn't going to be the profession, how it still, though, somehow ended up kind of being a part of what you did professionally with your law career. Can you talk a little bit about it?
So I didn't even ride the bench. I rode a desk, but So I was in law school, University of Virginia, and back in the dark ages of 1990, and it was a World Cup year, Italia 90. And so back then you couldn't just flip on ESPN or the gazillion channels now and watch a game. So you actually had to go to a bar. So I'm studying for the bar in a bar. You know, we're watching the game. And a friend of mine who I played soccer with said to me, you know, the World Cup's going to be here in the United States in 1994. They're going to need lawyers. And it was just like a light bulb going off for me. I had never thought about that a tournament like the World Cup, I barely knew what the World Cup was, you know, it was just not a big thing in the United States. But the thought that they would need lawyers was eye-opening to me. So I went back to my apartment, and I don't even remember how I did it because it was before the internet. So I figured out that the federation, the soccer federation, was based at that point in Colorado Springs, and the organizing committee for the '94 World Cup was based in Washington, D.C. So I called them, talked to them, but you had to either be willing to go to Colorado Springs or go to DC. And I already had a job in LA with Gibson Dunn, and that was my plan. So I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, too bad. I'll look forward to the games on TV, and moved to Los Angeles. About a year or two later, there was a big upheaval in the sport, and they named this guy president of both US Soccer and the organizing committee, who happened to be a lawyer at Latham & Watkins in Los Angeles. So he moved the whole organizing committee to LA. I started calling again, sending my resume. All I want to do is volunteer. I just want to be a part of it, right? How can I help? And so a few months later, I got a call from the general counsel, and she said, hey, I got your resume. I see you're a lawyer and a soccer player. You know, would you be willing to volunteer in the legal department? So of course, yes. So that worked out great. I did that for about 9 months. Again, dark ages. She would fax me deal points. I would fax her back the contract. She was in Century City. I was downtown. So, you know, it was far too far to ever see her again. But about 9 months later, she did call me and say, hey, do you want to have lunch? I was like, ooh, why could she possibly ask me for lunch? So I figured she was going to offer me a job, but, you know, I was at a big law firm. I couldn't imagine that, you know, financially I could do that. But of course, I went to lunch with her, and she said, yes, I'm super busy. I need someone to come join my team full time. Mind you, I'm a first-year attorney at this point. Turns out she was a second-year attorney. So, you know, it's like the blind leading the blind a little bit. But, and then she said, you know, and I'll match your salary. So that was pretty amazing. No question there. But then I knew this job would come to an end, right? It's an event, and it's going to take place, and then it's going to end. So then where am I? So I said, well, just give me a minute. So I came back to her, and I went back to my firm and asked them for a 2-year leave of absence. And they're like, okay. So then there was like, you know, no risk. So I, in 1993, joined the World Cup '94 organizing committee as vice president legal counsel. Super fun, right? It's a passion of mine. The most fun, though, was we would play pickup twice a week. And so I was playing with like Olympic players, you know, professional players from Denmark, from England, with best soccer of my life. Super fun.
What an exciting event to be a part of in general, right? And then to go do pickup games with Olympic, that is incredible. And that World Cup experience must have been priceless. So did it open other doors, or did you just go back to the regular law firm?
Yeah, no, it took me a while to let Gibson, Dunn and Crutcher know, but you know, it was interesting. So I was not I was not the general counsel, right? I was reporting to general counsel, but I was in an elevator one day before the tournament started, so probably early '94, with the president and CEO, Alan Rothenberg from Latham & Watkins. And we're in an elevator. I always wonder, if I hadn't gotten that elevator, what would have happened? But he's like, hey, June, you know, when we get this MLS started, do you want to be general counsel? I'm like, yes. So that was sort of the natural segue. The Major League Soccer was a requirement for the United States hosting the World Cup, right? For FIFA, the world governing body, the United States was the last, maybe still is, the last frontier for soccer. And so it was really important to them that, and it required that a men's professional leagues come out of the World Cup. So I was able to make that transition, became general counsel of Major League Soccer. We started in LA. The business plan was written before the World Cup started. And so I just, once the tournament was over, we all were in the same offices and we just started working on Major League Soccer. That was great. We were supposed to start in 95. We didn't start the league. Actually, the first season was in 96. And then in December of 96, they're like, okay, we're moving the whole thing to New York. So if you want to keep your job, you move to New York. And I'm from Connecticut, so I kind of knew I was in California for a reason, right? But I packed up my car with my sporting goods and my clothes, and that's it. I left my condo, found a renter, and moved to New York. And I was probably there for 3 months before I got a call from the president and CEO of the 1999 Women's World Cup. And she said, hey, how about coming back to LA and being my number 2? And let's put on the Women's World Cup. So I packed up my car again and drove back. And next thing you know, I'm back in LA with women's soccer this time. And, you know, for me, having worked so hard for women's soccer, that was just a really priceless experience to be really a part of that. So I was chief operating officer of the organizing committee for 99.
Wow. It's super exciting stuff. And I don't know how many people know that, but that is a really interesting, and there's not many people who can talk about this amazing journey between the coasts for major sports organization at the base level, right, of soccer getting established in the United States. And yet here you are in SLO County. How did you end up in the Central Coast?
Well, you know, there aren't too many World Cups held here. So it wasn't soccer that drew me here, although it kind of was, because first, I met my husband through all of this. We both worked World Cup 94, but we didn't meet until Major League Soccer, and he was in the tech department. So we started dating in Major League Soccer. We worked 99 together. He worked the 2002 Korea-Japan tournament. We got married in the middle of sort of all that. And then I got to go over for the month of the World Cup in Japan and just be a tourist and a fan for a month. And that's really the way to go to a World Cup. You get a hotel room, you know, all that. So it was just really fun. So I came home pregnant. So we're like, okay, you know, where are we gonna live? We didn't want to raise our family in Los Angeles. And I had actually been to SLO twice before, playing in a soccer tournament, a rec adult soccer tournament at Cuesta. And we're like, hey, that looked nice. You know, let's move to San Luis Obispo. And so here we are.
Well, and I would assume, since we don't have a Major League Soccer team, or that you weren't running that you had to, that piece kind of got set aside. Did you join a law firm here?
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. There was no MLS team here. I thought about that. You know, what could I do to get a team here? But I am a lawyer, and that's always been, you know, something that's important to me. And so I had heard that Sinsheimer Schiebel Hutton Baggett was looking for a partner to come in and take over their corporate practice. So I had lunch with Dave Yunke, you know, brought my husband up. My mom was living with us, the whole thing. And we checked it out. I talked to Dave, Warren, Bob, Robin, and joined their law firm. And it was really 12 years of just a really wonderful experience and working with fantastic people and getting to know the community, right? It really was a fantastic avenue for just finding my home in SLO and getting to know this fabulous community.
Well, those of us who are familiar, two of those names on that law firm are awfully familiar to those of us who are, you know, the origins of Tolosa. Tell us a little bit about the beginnings of Tolosa Winery. Were you right there with Robin and Bob when they were dreaming it up?
No. So they started dreaming early, right? So I moved here in 2003 after my daughter was born, but Robin went to Cal Poly. I'm not going to give his class away, but it was something in the 70s. And then he went away for law school and clerked and all that. And then he moved back to SLO because he wanted to be, you know, he's a cowboy and he wanted a cattle ranch and he wanted to be a cattle rancher like his grandpa. So he came to SLO, bought some dairy ranches in the valley and started running cattle. And after a while, he realized, first of all, that's a tough business. But that he was really in a place that was perfect for wine, and particularly for Pinot. So he and Bob Schiebelhut started planting grapes. And so that was in the late 80s. And then, so they were just, growers. And then about 10 years later, they had a really big harvest and they almost couldn't find a buyer for all their grapes. And they said, oh, you know what, if we're going to be masters of our own destiny, we got to build a winery. So the winery was built in 97. And that's when, or between the 97 and 98 harvest. And that's really when Tolosa was born. And they started making Tolosa. Didn't add the tasting room and all that till 2004. That's really when the winery as a guest experience started. So it's been quite a journey for them.
Yeah. So where along this line do you go from lawyer at one of the firms to the person running the winery here?
Well, like I'm watching them going, wait a sec, I joined their law firm, but like I said, the reason they had an opening at their law firm was that they were building this wine business and practicing law, and Tolosa got too big for them to be doing both. So the reason they needed someone like me to come in was so they could focus on wine. Shockingly, they picked wine over law because they could. So in 2015, then Robin let me know that, hey, Jim McIvor, their third partner at Tolosa, wanted to retire. Bob Schiebelhut was kind of thinking about retirement. And Robin was going to buy them out. And so would I help them with the transaction? And so got a former partner on either side, right? Could have represented either side, but Robin asked first. So I worked with Robin for for that acquisition and buying out his partners. And honestly, it was, we were on the phone late one night. He had already moved up to Napa at that point and founded Alpha Omega. He did that in about 2005, 2006. So he's living up in Napa. And we're on the phone one night talking about the contract. And I said, Robin, how are you going to run Tolosa from Napa? And he said, commute a lot, I guess. I said, you should hire me to run that for you. He laughed, as most people would. Hadn't run a winery before, but I'd run a business, right, with all my experience with World Cup. And so he said, well, I guess I just need someone I trust. So I said, well, just think about it. Next morning, he called me up. He's like, all right, let's talk. Next thing you know, I'm running a winery. So it wasn't completely foreign, right? I did have business experience. A lot of my clients as a lawyer were, wineries, growers, the Vintners Association, all of that, but still learning curve straight up.
Well, as president and CEO of a winery sounds like an amazing title, but what does it look like on a day-to-day basis? Are you down in the cellar, out in the vineyard, meeting people in the tasting room?
Sure. I make the wine. No, are you kidding? They don't let me anywhere near the cellar. They want me out of the vineyards. They do let me talk to guests once in a while, but really it's running the business, really setting our strategic vision, supporting the team, making sure that the teams have what they need to do their job to the best they can. We really are blessed with an amazing team, amazing winemaker who really leads a great cellar team, a great estate manager, estate director who really leads our hospitality team. So really we've got great people doing what they do best, and my job is to make sure that they can do that.
Well, it's really interesting as we hear kind of that journey Robin set out on. But at the start, there were lots of wines in Tolosa's repertoire. But recently, I've noticed a real focus on Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, as well as a laser focus on visitor experience. Was that just a natural evolution, or was that more of a strategic, intentional choice?
That was very strategic. As Robin came in 2015, what he wanted to do was really bring that direct-to-consumer focus to Tolosa that he really pioneered up at Alpha Omega. I mean, people talk about direct-to-consumer now all the time, but when Robin founded Alpha Omega on that concept, it wasn't even a term, direct-to-consumer, right? But there was a Supreme Court decision, the Granholm decision, that opened up shipping across state lines of alcohol. And so Robin recognized that you weren't necessarily going to always have to go through a distributor anymore to sell a wine. And he really wanted to build a winery that had a direct relationship with its customer. And so he did that very successfully up at Alpha Omega. Like I say, it was really a pioneer in doing that. And then he wanted to bring that same approach to Tolosa. So starting in 2015, when he took over, we really, you say focus and laser-like focus, that really is for us. Focus, I think, is a key ingredient for excellence. And so the Edna Valley is the perfect climate for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. So that's what we wanted to be excellent at and keep our focus on that, rather than trying to be a little bit of everything to everyone. And then also just really focused on our relationship with the customer and with our direct customer. So we totally revamped our whole production facility, brought in all new tanks, really elevated the quality of the wine that we were making, as well as really revamped all of our hospitality spaces, from, the Primera room, which is our wine club members lounge, private tasting room that we have. We've got a barrel tasting loft. And then most visible really is all the outdoor spacing that we, it used to be a lawn, and now it's, it's beautiful seating under olive trees where you can enjoy the views. So really that focus on the customer experience has been really a key focus for us. And it's also how what the experience is, right? We were, before COVID even, we were really encouraging reservations. We had a hostess that would greet you, take you to where you're going to have a seated tasting, so that we could really make sure that you had a quality experience every step of the way, to focus on that experience.
Yeah, thinking there's been a lot of great things that we've seen in the changes, and I know that those changes sound like they'd already kind of been in process for you during COVID. Do you anticipate those things just continuing along and being, or are there more changes that are likely to come?
I'm sure there's always more changes, right? That's one thing I've definitely figured out. Is I don't no idea what's coming. But yes, COVID let us sort of added customer acceptance to a lot of what we were already doing. So we were already really encouraging reservations, but people weren't used to having to make a reservation to come to a winery in SLO. And we were encouraging it, we weren't requiring it. But then when COVID hit, you pretty much had to require it once you were able to even open back up. And seated tastings, and very much a very defined guest experience. And so that, it's one of the silver linings of COVID, that customers came to expect that. And so and you see it, all our neighbors too, no one's going back. Reservations are, I think they're great. Like, I hate going to a restaurant and planning my whole around it, and then I have to wait an hour. I love reservations. But I'd love to be able to walk up too. And if we can accommodate a walk up, then, we certainly do that. But I think for a guest experience, those types of things really elevate the experience. So we'll be sticking with them.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's really, I agree. I think it does make it better no matter which winery, because most of them are all doing that. It does make for that great experience. I mentioned in the beginning that you've not only been a board chair for Leadership SLO, our leadership program, but recently you also hosted Sustainability Day. What made Tolosa kind of a good fit for that topic?
Yes. So, our Tolosa has always had a commitment to sustainability. We put in a solar array in 2009. So solar has been a big part of it. When we renovated our outdoor spaces in 2016, we installed electric car charging stations. We've got a Tesla dual station and a regular one. But really, to me, if you're not panicked about what's happening to our planet right now, you're not paying attention. Actually, I do get panicked when I talk about it. But I also felt, I was thinking about this last year, and I just didn't feel like, I didn't know what I could do. It just seems like such a big problem, and it's complicated, and there's just so many pieces to it. And I'm one person at a very small company. What can we really do? And then, you'll love it, I know, you've got a copy. I discovered this book, and it's going to be backwards probably, right, for everyone, but it's What If Solving the Climate Crisis is Simple, right? Like, this is what I needed. I needed someone to tell me, oh, it's simple. And the premise of the book really is that, fossil fuels are the main problem for climate change. And if we could just eliminate our use of fossil fuels, we will make incredible strides to getting where we need to on climate change. Yes, there's other issues and all that, but solve this first, the end of use of fossil fuels, and then we can move on to the others. So this really became something that's driven what we are doing at Tolosa starting really this year. We took the mantra of the book, which we pledged to eliminate our use of fossil fuels by the year 2040 and absolutely positively not fail. So that is super important to us. But we're to implement that, we've gone through a lot of changes. So we joined the Porto Protocol, which is a wine industry focused group that focuses on sustainability in the wine industry, and is really all about sharing ideas. So we've been getting a lot of ideas through that. We also set up internally working groups to focus on these issues. So our vineyards are SIP certified, sustainability and practice, and that's the program of the Central Coast Vineyard team. And they have 3 pillars to their sustainability program. It's people, planet, and prosperity. Because if you don't take care of your people, it's not going to work. And if you can't continue your business model, prosperity, people aren't going to do it either. And then also, of course, saving the planet. So we have a working group around each one of those pillars. And it's employees volunteer to be on a working group. They got to pick which one was of interest to them. And those groups have subcommittees, and they've really been doing a lot of brainstorming about what can we do. And some amazing ideas have come out of that and coming out of the Porto Protocol, and also just talking to our neighbors and making this a priority. So some of the ideas that have come out, our first meeting with the Porto Protocol, another winery was talking about what they were doing with pulse cooling. So, we've got these big tanks, you ferment grapes, it creates a lot of heat, you need to cool them down. So they have jackets around them that we pump glycol around. And it's continuously pumping glycol, and it goes around all of the tanks. Well, that spends a lot of energy. So what the idea is that you only did it periodically. You pump enough glycol, let the glycol warm up, the wine cool down, and then when it gets to a certain ratio there, then you run the pump again. So you're not continually pumping. So it's a big energy savings. So we're doing trials on that for our winery. We're going to plant a Miyawaki forest, which is something we learned from our neighbor Chamasal, and theirs is already planted. Look it up, Miyawaki forest, it's pretty cool. We're talking about adding additional solar panels. We partnered with Voltus to measure the energy that we're using right now, because we don't even know where we were as a benchmark. And we shut down almost everything that we can one Wednesday a month, just to see how far can we get it, and can we save even more. We're redeveloping our vineyard to look at, can we do dry farming? Can we implement regenerative farming? Sort of different things are looking there. Little things like putting hand dryers in, coming later this year, in the restrooms, changing the hose nozzles that we have to save a little bit of water. I mean, the ideas coming from our employees are just so numerous, and everyone's so excited about being a part of this and really making a difference. So we're super excited.
Well, and that's amazing thought process as a company that you put into it. Obviously, the wine industry definitely will suffer if we don't solve this, right? The drought or extreme weather. How would that potentially impact long term?
Yeah, so we always talk about, like, over the grade, it seems to be getting hotter and hotter, right? And pretty soon, can you even grow grapes like in Paso? So Jim, you and I have talked, well, so then that means maybe we grow cab here down here in the valley, where we traditionally grow a cooler climate varietal pinot. But actually, I think what we're seeing is the extremes, right? So actually, as it's been getting hotter over the grade, it's actually been getting cooler at the coast, which is where we are. So maybe we get to a point where we can't even ripen our grapes. They ripen them in a nanosecond up there, and the raisins, and we can't ever get there. So we have to see where that where the weather takes us. On the drought part, like I said, we're looking at, can we do dry farming? How can we better preserve, conserve water as we grow our grapes? I think that's an important, certainly in Paso, where already you can't get enough water. Edna Valley hasn't hit that yet, but it's just a matter of time. So everyone has to conserve.
Yeah, it's very obviously see why Tolosa has taken such a strong position on climate change, and certainly thankful for all the work that you're doing and sharing that information. Looking down on the horizon for the winery or the industry, are there interesting things on the horizon for Edna Valley?
Yeah, there's so much exciting stuff that we're doing that I probably can't even narrow it down. The one thing I have learned in the wine industry, or I'm trying to learn, is patience. Really hard for me, but you get one time each year to get it right in the wine business. You're going to make wine, and if you screw it up, you got to wait till next year to do it again. So I'm trying to learn patience, but we do have a lot of really fun stuff. For us, really, this doubling down on sustainability is going to take a lot of our focus for the next, till 2040 and beyond. And redeveloping the vineyard, that's a big project for us. And really, where do we want to go with that? Definitely Pinot Noir and Chardonnay, but how are we approaching that? We want to make the quality of the wine starts in the vineyard, so we want the highest quality, but in the most sustainable way possible. So that's really exciting. Exciting more for our region is any day now, it should have been months ago. There's a new AVA, American Viticultural Area appellation, that's going to be approved. It's called the San Luis Obispo Coast, and it is the region sort of to the west of the Santa Lucia Ridge there, from the Santa Barbara County line to the Monterey County line. So that whole coastal region, so it's not Paso, it's the whole coastal region. And I think that will give us a lot in common with our coastal neighbors. And it will also really put San Luis Obispo Coast on the map, right? To have our own AVA. And that's what a lot of us are going to be putting on the labels. Because Edna Valley's super small. And I think the coast is going to be really an exciting thing. The last thing that we're really looking to really continue to focus on is diversity in the wine industry. It's gotten a lot of bad rap over the last year about being, not so inclusive. We've taken a hard look at what we do and trying to make sure that we are acting in a much more inclusive manner. So that's something that we're excited to see how that pans out over the next few years.
That's so exciting. It's really interesting stuff that you're doing right at the site. I love the idea of the Coast AVA to really kind of highlight all the great work you're doing, but also in the business culture of wineries and making sure diversity, that is truly amazing. If folks wanted to learn more about Tolosa Winery, what's the best way for them to connect or find you?
Yeah, so of course our website, tolosawinery.com. We are on Instagram and Facebook, both as Tolosa Winery. If people are interested more in our wine region, the San Luis Obispo Coast Wine Collective is our local wine region vintners association. It's gone through a few different names over time, so that's what we are now, San Luis Obispo Coast Wine Collective. And that we have a website at slowcoastwine.com. Facebook, Slow Coast Wine, Instagram, actually Slow Wine Country. But that's a great way to learn about our region and what all our neighbors are doing as well.
It's fabulous. And so we will put it in our Facebook chat below. So comments, if you're looking to link up to Tolosa or the Slow Coast Wine Collective, all those will be down there. We'd love to end this the way we always do, June. What are you looking forward to this weekend?
This weekend. So, well, at the winery, we've got our August Supper Club dinner on Saturday night. So looking forward to that. I think I'm going to get out and play a little pickup soccer on Sunday morning. So we'll see if I live through that. But the big thing for us this weekend is packing up my daughter for college, because this is our second to last weekend with her. So we're going to get her ready to launch.
That's great. And I'm sure very sad and happy at the same time.
Definitely.
Well, June, thank you so much for eating lunch with us and sharing the story for Tolosa. Really appreciate all the energy and efforts all of you are putting in to our community.
Thanks so much, Jim. Thanks for having me.
For all of you, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next week, same time, when we will be talking with John and Sarah Peterson, the owners of Scout Coffee Company, as they get ready to launch a 4th location. I'm looking forward to hearing about what led them to start their company, how they evolved and adjusted through COVID, and what the future looks like for them. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. Stay healthy and safe out there. Bye-bye.